Yeah. I hope he's. We're not online yet. Yeah. I hope he's getting well checked on the border. I'm being precautious.
We're line. Hello.
Yeah. The
Let me
Exactly.
full.
check audio really quick. What you
Sure.
can chat him.
Nitsan, you have no idea. This guy put 6 boxes of tips at the top of his suitcase. He's begging to get like opened up.
Yeah. I used to see the pile of Dunkin' Donuts behind you.
I
I
know
used
you're
to,
used to seeing that. I got those out of here, thank God.
yeah. So I
Something was
know.
growing in there. I felt like it was going to take me any moment.
So Max, just give us a heads up when we are on.
Yo, Razvan, when did you fly off to Amsterdam? I mean, yesterday you were in Bucharest.
All
I
good.
have
All
an
good. We can
I
start.
have a teleportation trick.
Nice,
Holy-
nice. Share with us, please.
Yo, Vlad, what's up? Is that
Hey!
Amsterdam?
Yep.
That is real Amsterdam.
Wow.
Oh my God, you bastard! I love you.
Oh my God.
Proper.
Well done, Vlad. Well done. Wow. I hope you feel what everyone are thinking.
Yep. Wish you were here.
They just closed the borders for Israelis in Holland now. Even if I wanted.
Yeah, we're good to go, guys.
Good.
Okay. So Alex.
We're ready to go.
Oh yeah, we're ready. Go ahead. Guys, we're ready.
Alex.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good afternoon. Good evening. Welcome to the 2021 OpenSIPS Summit live distributed. I wanted to thank everyone for making it here today, and we're getting ready to give you a week's worth of amazing content, amazing speakers, amazing people. The first thing I want to say is we're all disappointed.
And don't forget an amazing MC, please.
I'm sorry. That's right. We have. Thank you.
Yay, go Alex!
So what I wanted to start off with is our fundraiser this year. We did an amazing job when we first announced the OpenSIPS project for the man. I'm sorry, it's early, gentlemen. For the audit, for the security audit, and we have Sandro with us. He'll be doing a presentation later in the week. He'll be describing a little bit more about what that's about. But the community really responded amazingly, and we managed to get most of the way there. We're hoping that before the end of the summit, we can finish and get to the end of that. Somebody, if they can, at some point, please put up a link to our GoFundMe. I just was hoping that anybody here today can take a look, see if you have something in the pocket to make this amazing audit happen. Something that we need It's something that's really great for the community and for everybody that's using OpenSIPS. With that said, I'm glad to see everybody here. We have, like I said, an amazing group of speakers, moderators, presenters that are going to be bringing some amazing information to you. I also want to take a moment to recognize our sponsor for this year. Bogdan, are you there with me?
Yes, I am. Yes.
If you would like to just say a couple of quick words about our sponsor. I know that it was kind of quick for them joining on, but let's give them just a little bit of an introduction if you can.
Sure. Let me present the big picture. So even if it wasn't our first option, we had to stick with the online event this year again. We are looking forward to to hopefully next year to meet all of you in person, ideally in Amsterdam. For this year, we have the same format for the summit, and this year we our efforts were backed up by the Subspace as a sponsor. They are really interested in let's say in the RTC world. Actually, with the team from Subspace, with William King and Bayan, we have a long history in terms of collaborating, exchanging ideas, quite often meeting at conferences like the ClueCon and so on and so on. And now they went into with this new endeavor, the Subspace. They are really getting close to what also we do, meaning again, generically said, RTC. Of course, I don't want to do a spoiler, because William will give a very nice presentation about what they are doing and how they can help. Because basically that's the whole idea, how they can help with communication, especially when it comes to SIP and RTC. The presentation will be on Wednesday. Yeah, that's something that we should check, because again, that's something quite interesting. So again, Subspace, William, Bayan, thank you for the sponsoring on this edition. This helped us putting things, logistical things on the move. Probably you noticed the new OpenSIPS 2021 T-shirts that we do, and even if we were not able to meet in person, so to show them to you, we did the effort of sending them to all the moderators and the speakers. So yeah, we will be proud wearing this. So even if we are apart, we are trying to keep the spirit united, and like in the Olympics, the flame burning about this.
Wow, what an amazing correlation. We're keeping the flame of OpenSIPS running in the world. It's a small point of light in a dark world.
Oh, let's not be so dramatic. Come on.
Okay.
It's just the first day. Yeah. So before diving into the first presentation, which is mine, some organizatorical things about the summit. Again, more or less following the same model like last year. We will have the roughly 3 hours presentations per day. This year we may have 1 hour or 30 minutes presentations. You can check everything on the Google Calendar that we shared with you all, so you know exactly the time and the speaker and everything. And also pay attention to the Slack channel, because we provide a lot of updates over there in terms of what is going on, eventually getting questions from you and so on. Not to mention one of the most, how to say, entertaining action of the summit, which is the raffle. This year we have of course the OpenSIPS 2021. So if someone considers starting collecting, each year T-shirt, we have them as prizes for the raffle, and also the big prize, which is the bag, the laptop bag with the OpenSIPS inscription. Also, we put on the table some design clinics hours for people, so we can if you have ideas, plans, questions about OpenSIPS, these are very easy to address via these design clinics that we do offer. So each day at the end of the conference, we will do a picking. Actually, two of them, one for the T-shirt, another one for the design clinic. Flavio is here to help us with this. We have the separate channel, the Summit raffle. Basically, we were going to use an app and
Number Generator 2.0. Flavio's worked on it this year.
Yeah,
I heard that it's going to be more fair and no moderators are going to end
it's at 4.0 this year.
4.0 this year. Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, so it's mandatory in order to, even if you are picked, it's mandatory for you to be on the channel when we do the the raffle, so you can claim your prize. So again, if you are not on the Summit raffle channel, let me know, and we can fix that. Just to avoid intruders, the OpenSIPS, the Summit raffle, it's a private channel, so you cannot add yourself. Again, just to keep control on who wants to claim the prizes. So drop me a line and or just post it on the Summit channel, and we can fix it. Okay.
I'm dropping you a line right now, Bogdan.
Oh yeah, I know. I will take care and add you like 3 or 4 times. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, everything for you, Alex. But again, you need to be online on the channel and answer at the time of the picking. Otherwise, we will do another drawing, so you will lose the prize.
The classic: if you snooze, you lose.
Exactly. So let's get it started, because time it's running already, and we need to fit it into the schedule. Well, we already know the yearly drill. Okay, we have each year we have a release. Each year we have a summit, and of course during the summit we try to focus on at least from the core team, we try to focus and present all the goodies available in the latest release. So naturally, this year we're going to talk about the OpenSIPS 3.2 and what actually this release came with. Of course, at the end of the day, this year we focused on the project, the code actually. Sorry, so doing a lot of coding around the project, but it's actually a project, especially an open source project. It's more than the code only. So we focused more than the 3.2 release, and that was also on the release policy. So we try to be more how to say rigorous on the release policy, mainly about the minor releases. It's our desire to bring the fixes as soon as possible in the packages, in the releases, so people can update and upgrade with the latest, most stable version. And thanks to Flavio, now we have a running calendar to remind us, okay, we should not put more than 2 months between the minor releases. So again, the idea is to continuously test, continuously add the fixes into a new minor release. Also this year we are running an external security audit. There was a lot of talking about we wanted to do a professional security audit, from a third party. That's Sandro Gauci doing this. He will talk more about this on Wednesday, if I'm not wrong. So I will not steal his pleasure of describing what exactly he's trying to do. Actually, he's trying to break OpenSIPS. Now the question is, let's see if he finds a way to do it. He will do a lot of penetration tests and just to see if there are any kind of security holes in the OpenSIPS armor, and if there is something to fix. But keep in mind that's let's say public. Kind of a public project within OpenSIPS project, meaning that the results and the fixes and everything will go public. Also, the result of the audit, and because it's it's public between everyone, of course, to cover the expenses, because at the end of the day, work is valuable. We have ongoing fundraising in order to again cover the expenses with this audit. But that's something I think most of you are looking for. I was at least personally asked several times, like, okay, when doing some OpenSIPS based solution, asking, okay, do you have any kind of security audits on this and that, in terms of the solution? And we said maybe from the project perspective, it's better to again do some something together. So it's not like I do it for myself, somebody else is doing it for yourself, and so on and so on. So yeah, it's a public effort, common effort for the benefit of all of us. And a bit of a spoiler at this, it's not necessarily part of the 3.2 release, but it's part of what we are doing in this 2021 year and what we are focusing. We are working on some testing framework, mainly to to address some let's say needs for continuous integration at the project level. We want to get some ways of better testing the code or the functionalities in OpenSIPS in terms of modules, scripting, and so on. And of course, to do it into an automatic way, and in a way that, okay, you can expand by adding tests and so on and so on. But again, that's just a bit of a teaser. We'll expand on this later, because it's quite work on progress. Similar, another work in progress that was planned for some long time, but now we finally got to the point of doing it. It's to enhance the control panel. It's for maybe 2 or 3 years, or I think 3 years, and so stuck to the 0.0 version. So we are just updating only with the OpenSIPS version. But this will be a new control panel version with a lot of improvements. that will make it easier to use, to configure. That's the whole idea, to do an self configuration for the control panel. But again, I don't want to be a spoiler. So when the work will be ready, will be fully presented. I just wanted to give you some ideas on what we are working or what we did this year. I had a similar slide with the history in last year presentation, just to see some evolution in terms of what we focused on each year for the OpenSIPS release. It's more or less to see, okay, how we did with the 3.2. So for the 3.2, we focused on let's say basically on scaling, on how to run on clouds, because okay, usually cloud is about geo distribution or about scaling, and how to easily distribute. So all the mechanism inside OpenSIPS to distribute. As you see, this was at the point also addressed in the past in 2.4, when we actually had the first major step in the clustering. So now we did a kind of a clustering plus, but with more flavors again, going to the direction of geo distribution and running into the clouds. So yeah, let's see exactly what we have in the OpenSIPS 3.2. Now, as said, it's mainly about the horizontal scaling, and the idea is to have a lot of support into OpenSIPS 3.2 to be able to integrate with cloud-specific services and backend. So basically, to be very, very easy for you to run OpenSIPS in specific clouds. And on the other hand, to have in OpenSIPS a mechanism that allows you to build distributed SIP service. So basically, to take advantage of the possibility offered by the clouds to do geo distribution, basically to run in multiple points of present or location data center zones, because everybody wants to do that for failover reasons or for geo distribution reasons. So that's the main focus of OpenSIPS 3.2, but that's not limited to that. So we also improved a lot of all the existing areas that we have into OpenSIPS, like the TLS support or the back-to-back support, and so on and so on. Or we start digging into, let's say, new areas, so touching new grounds. We will go in details later. So let's start with the clustering. Now, for each item that we have on the list here when it comes to the 3.2, in my presentation I'll have like two approaches. Some of the topics will be later expanded by the developers of the OpenSIPS project. So I don't want to get into too many details because they will definitely do a greater job than me on this. But I will still mention them as I want you to see the big picture in terms of, okay, what was done. Also, we got used to use the blog posts in order to introduce to the public all the new features, all the new things that we do. So in some cases, I will reuse this posts just to explain a bit what a certain item is about. Like in this case, first of all, in the clustering, we looked at the actual clustering engine. So how you can you put the OpenSIPS multiple OpenSIPs together. And there were some interesting additions when it comes to the clustering engine in 3.2. We have a very nice blog post here from Vlad Petrashku, and I will briefly mention the things which are really relevant. I will let you the pleasure to go in details by reading his post. One of the most important things about the clustering support in OpenSIPS in the 3.2, we introduced the TLS version of the of the clustering protocol, so the binary protocol, because it was more and more obvious that at some point you need to run a cluster across the public internet, so not always on private networks, and to be able to protect your data, then the TLS. So for the BIN protocol, it's a must. So we have the proto-BIN-S module, so the secured binary communication for the clustering communication. Another thing that we discovered is about the cluster, the management of the cluster. Basically, most of the things that we added here, surprisingly, were discovered as needs while we were running with Flavio, the OpenSIPS bootcamp. And we had the students running some clusters. And of course, they did a lot of things, let me put it this way, in an unusual way, so not in the way that it's supposed to, leading to some really weird behaviors. And getting to the situation where, okay, we try to find solutions. Okay, how we can fix, the broken clusters they built. And we said, okay, actually, we need a better management. So here we have the possibility right now to restrict node joining. So when you do a static definition to the database for a cluster, you say, okay, these are the nodes of my cluster. Nobody else should join. Previously, even if you had the definition in the cluster in the database for the cluster, external nodes may join if they know one of the nodes of the cluster. So it was a bit more permissive. Right now, you can do like a very isolated cluster. So if a node, even if a new node, even if it knows a node already existing node, it will not be able to join to the cluster. Also, something quite useful, removing the nodes at runtime. That's very useful. For example, when you do reconfigure the cluster at runtime, so there is actually a need to be able to remove without shutting down the full cluster as you had to do before. And also in terms of managing, we have the possibility to disable nodes. So for example, maybe a node is under maintenance. You don't want to get a lot of errors from the other nodes in the cluster that they are not able to communicate with the culprit node. So in that case, you can simply disable it, so it will be ignored, but without actually removing from the definition of the cluster. So there are some really useful features that will make the management of the cluster much easier and in a more secure way. Now we have there is another feature which is actually provided by the clustering engine, but used only for the dialog module. So it might be like an example of a good transition between what we worked for the on the actual clustering engine and what we worked on modules that requires clustering. Because okay, it's what is under the hood, the clustering, and what is visible on top. These are the modules using the clustering support. And in terms of modules using the clustering support, probably a good example here is the dialog replication, especially when in a scenario when you do like an multicast. Sorry, anycast. In this case, you may, I don't want to get into really technical details, but you have some special scenarios in terms of replicating data between the nodes. So basically, each node should replicate only data he is active for in order to, again, push into the cluster, so publish into cluster only valid data. So if before we had a node, the ability of a node to publish the full data, now we can publish data specific to a sharing tag, basically meaning, okay, data that is the active, the valid data. So there are some new parameters for the dialog module to control the replication, like automatic sync, so an automatic way to get the data from a node when reconnecting, or to sync only the data which is associated with an active tag. Again, these are a bit details, but keep in mind the idea is to improve the way you build clusters with OpenSIPS. And going back, now that we somehow jumped from the clustering engine itself to clustering more modules, besides the work on the dialog module, we have the work in the presence user agent engine. In OpenSIPS, we added proper clustering support into there. Basically, what is a presence user agent? It's an entity, a presence entity, which generates publishing data. And OpenSIPS does a lot of self-publishing, for example, when you do PLF or dialog info. So based on the ongoing calls, OpenSIPS can generate presence data. So the idea is how you can have multiple OpenSIPs, each generating BLF data for its own dialogues, how you can, share and cluster everything. And we put together kind of a mixture between sharing through the database the actual content and using the OpenSIPS clustering for notification layer, so just to notify the nodes whenever some changes happens into the in the presence data, and eventually they need to load something new, to update the cache through the database. But the idea, the typical scenario that we try to address is like, okay, we have, like in this example, two OpenSIPS servers together in a cluster. Different devices, so the SIP user agents on the left, sorry, on the right, they may be subscribed for presence information to, different nodes. And then inside one of the OpenSIPS nodes, some presence data is generated through the presence user agent layer. For example, if you do a PUA publish, so you publish through the MI, so the management interface, or as an example, the OpenSIPS below, based on the calls running through that, it generates the BLF presence information. So locally in one of the node, you have some new data that's internally published. But these publishes have to be actually broadcasted in the cluster, because you have different different subscribers on different nodes. So you don't need to update only the local node, but also all the nodes in the cluster with this new PUA data. So yeah, right now you can actually cluster the BLF when it comes to generating the BLF data in a very nice way. And here, thanks to Giovanni for pointing out some issues that in 3.1. So we got to the bottom of them with this new clustering support for PUA in 3.2. So that's about the clustering. Again, we improved the clustering support, and we had the ability, we added the ability to cluster on some additional modules. In the beginning, we said, okay, 3.2 is focused on scaling and mainly using clouds. So it's about how we integrate better with the existing clouds. Basically, getting as much as possible cloud support into OpenSIPS, and this basically translates in being able to integrate with cloud-specific services backend. So it's about integration with the cloud, with what the cloud has to offer, in a way that for OpenSIPS will be much easier to build this kind of distributed SIP services. So that's the idea with the cloud, to work to tune OpenSIPS as much as possible for the for running on clouds. So let's see exactly what was done. One of the most interesting things and really useful was the RTP abstraction. So how an OpenSIPS can work with, let's say, a pool of RTP relays in the same time in a very easy way. Basically, what we ended up doing, it's a new interface in OpenSIPS, so that you can completely unaware of what type of relay is. From the script level, you can work with this totally transparent with these relays in a unified, simple manner, without caring about details like, oh, do I have to maintain a session between through the whole dialogue, or do I need to have some data persistent to remember some things that I did when I had the invite, to remember when I would do later a re-invite, and do I have to remember what media relay was, and so on. So basically, what we did was we escalated let's say the abstraction level into the way the RTP relays are used in OpenSIPS. In the very beginning, we were used to do everything manually, like doing the offer answer in a manual way. So basically, we were using we had to be really SIP aware. Like, okay, I have the invite, I have 200. Okay, so you're really tied to the signaling. There was no idea of a session. I mean, in OpenSIPS so you had to remember at the script level what you did at the invite time in order to do the same for the 200OK or for the re-invites later. So basically, there was no session. You have to again manually do it, and you had to really be strict about okay, what RTP engine you were relay you were using. Like to remember, okay, I'm using RTP proxy, I'm using RTP engine, and so on. An intermediary step was using an RTP engage functionality, which more or less was trying to hide the SIP layer. So basically, you don't have to be aware of the interaction for each SIP package with the media relay, but still you had a lot of issues like, okay, do I need to preserve a lot of data about the SIP about the RTP session, for example. Okay, do I do WebSocket? So in that case, I need to do SRTP to RTP conversion, and if I do it for the invite, I have to remember all the parameters. So when I do a re-invite, I have to do the same. This kind of session. And this is what was addressed with this RTP abstraction. Basically, besides the fact that you don't have to care anymore about the whole dialogue mapping. So you do it in the very beginning at the initial invite, and then the module will take care for you for the all sequential traffic in the dialogue, but also will remember what kind of a session, so what were the RTP, let's say, parameters you used in the very beginning, and it will keep applying them for the rest of the SIP dialogue. And also this, let's say, RTP session, it's very detached from what RTP engine you are using, like it's RTP engine and proxy. So basically, this gives you the possibility to move RTP sessions between different relays in a very, very easy way. For example, a typical case, it's RTP, what we call the RTP re-anchoring. Like you have a regular call with RTP going through one RTP relay, and then without from the OpenSIPS level, you can issue some re-invites, and then you can renegotiate RTP through a different relay. So basically, that's what I'm saying. You can move between different instances, and even more, they can be different types of relays. Again, can be an RTP proxy, can be an RTP engine, and you can do it for multiple purposes. You can do it for failover, so you can use, to move the stream, the media relaying to a different machine, or you can use it for scaling, for balancing, and so on and so on. But right after me, Razvan will talk more about this. So let's not spoil his presentation. In terms of continuing with the cloud support, we have the Prometheus backend added into OpenSIPS. Basically, even before you had the possibility to, using external tools to pull data and then publish into Prometheus for monitoring purposes, now OpenSIPS is able to directly push information to a Prometheus server, so the statistics. Here it's a very nice blog of from Razvan, like how you can integrate Prometheus with OpenSIPS directly, and on top of that with Grafana, so you can let's say you can actually chart in a very, very nice way all the statistics, internal statistics of OpenSIPS in a graphical way. So you can obtain something like this with the into Grafana. So yeah, bottom line, right now OpenSIPS is natively speaking the Prometheus language, so it's much easier to integrate. Prometheus is quite very used, especially if you run in cloud, because you can aggregate data from multiple sources and nodes and so on. So that was one of the reasons. We will show this more on the OpenSIPS training on next Tuesday. That will, sorry, okay. That will be part of the training. And okay, if we are able to provide statistics, we took one step further, the whole story, and we add support into OpenSIPS. We added support for statistics series. Basically, besides the, let's say, raw data that is raw statistics that are published by OpenSIPS so far in previous before 3.2. In 3.2, you can do for certain statistics even custom ones. So you can populate them at the script level. You can do series. So basically history. So you can see the evolution, not only the the real-time value, but you can see the evolution in time of statistics, and that's something very, very nice. For example, if you want to do the classical ACD, AST, the PDD, or even if you want to see the MOS in terms of RTP, you can get all this data. You can calculate, the real-time values at the script level, and then you can push them the values into such series. So at the end of the day, using, of course, the Prometheus integration, you can get very nice monitoring for OpenSIPS. And all this, it's at the script level, so it's very, very handy. You can create, again, your own things or your own series for statistics. So it's very flexible and also, let's say, expandable. I mean, in terms of expansion, probably that's the right word. In the very beginning of the year, we had a quite interesting presentation during the ClueCon. There is a recording. That's a lot of examples, but there is a recording if you want to see how it works. It's here at the end of well. Oh, I think it was the sorry, in the other post. In the
Stop scrolling so much. You're giving me motion sickness.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So there is a lot of information, but again, that's a very, very interesting and I would say kind of a hot topic about monitoring, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to monitor their services in order to be sure that everything works okay, and also for in terms of performance, just to be sure that your service is efficient. So you should really pay attention to these new possibilities of monitoring OpenSIPS. Again, this will be part of the OpenSIPS training. What else we have in the cloud support? We have the Kafka backend. That's an queue of events. It's the Kafka. It's provided by Apache, similar like RabbitMQ. And because it's also popular in as a service in different clouds, we said, okay, let's have this natively in OpenSIPS. And if you will take a look at this detailed post from Vlad, you will see that you can use the Kafka as producer and for events, so you can push into the queue. So it's again something very useful if you want to build complex systems require communication based on events. And one of the last things about the cloud support, it's not tied to, okay, what we developed into OpenSIPS, but it's more like what we experimented or let's say worked with OpenSIPS, running OpenSIPS on Kubernetes. It's a quite, let's say, popular, very abstract layer of cloud, not layer, cloud. But there are quite some challenges in how to run OpenSIPS on Kubernetes. And Livio will talk about this, because to a certain point, OpenSIPS and Kubernetes is like oil and water. They don't want to mix. But if you know how to do it, well, you can get a nice recipe at the end. You can convince them to work together, and you can get nice cloud deployment with OpenSIPS on Kubernetes. And this is the part for the cloud support, so clustering and different kind of backends support specific to the cloud. And as we said, beside this area, we worked a lot in 3.2 on different areas. Some completely new, like the diameter support. And I will start with what we called the IMS deadlock. Well, as you know, the policy in terms of development of OpenSIPS is we are guided by the needs of the community. In this case, we are collecting from people. Doesn't matter the channel, what they are trying to do with OpenSIPS, what they will need from OpenSIPS, and we try to put this into the roadmap. Well, with the IMS, there is a kind of deadlock because that's a huge how to say yeah uh, um, um, uh, piece of work by itself. So we as developers, as there were no obvious questions about the IMS, we never considered, because okay, again, we are more or less considering for developing things which are requested or questioned by the developers, by the users, sorry. On the other hand, the users, looking at OpenSIPS, are saying, okay, there is no IMS support into OpenSIPS, so there are no questions asked. So you see, it's a kind of a deadlock. Users, they do not ask, and developers, because if the users do not ask, they will not do it, and so on. So basically, it will never get done. So we said, okay, let's break the circle and start doing some work in this direction, mainly doing the diameter support, which is really mandatory, and some big component, at least from a VoIP perspective, for the IMS platforms. Why we started with a small step? Because again, the whole IMS thing is quite huge. It's a lot of work to be there, and we want to see, okay, how people will receive this new work, this new IMS support in OpenSIPS before actually doing everything. So it's more or less like we are trying to see, the interest of in the IMS world by doing first the diameter support. And in this post of Flavio, he describes for now how you can use diameter in OpenShift 3.2 for accounting and authentication purposes. So it's integrated with the whole accounting and authentication frame in the OpenShift, so you can do it. And he will talk about this on Friday, and also what's the vision on the IMS. Another area which was, okay, this time not completely new, but we are keep working on, it's security. And it may be something very, very short to mention, like, okay, we dropped, or okay, we try not to rely so much on the OpenSSL when it comes to the TLS SSL support in OpenSIPS, and we migrated to another library, like the Wolves SSL. So it's easy to mention, but actually there was a lot of work, and that was done thanks to Vlad Petrashku. Basically, the OpenSSL library, in terms of development, follows a path which somehow conflicts with what OpenSIPS needs. Like we need multi-processing support. They are more focused on, or fully focused lately on multi-threads. Or we need to provide our own memory manager, or our own locking mechanism in order to work in the multi-process environment, while the OpenSSL library in the last releases, they do not provide access to the locking and memory manager, so you can not provide support for that into the library. So lately in 3031, I think, and I'm not exaggerating, maybe 60-70% of the bug reports we had were about crashes into OpenSSL, because this incompatibility between how the library works and how OpenSIPS works. So we said, okay, this is going nowhere, and the result, the decision was, okay, we're going to use Wolf SSL, which is a different library which fits better with OpenSIPS in terms of the OpenSIPS architecture. So right now in OpenSIPS, you have when it comes to TLS SSL, you have the possibility to use either OpenSSL, either Wolf SSL as support, and it works like a charm. So we hope that we put behind us all these issues with the crashes on OpenSSL. But that required a lot of work. Again, for you in the script, it's just loading an extra module. So impact, it's like more or less almost zero. But in terms of work, I don't exaggerate. I think there are like 3 or 4 months of continuous work on this. And because we mentioned SSL support, besides the replacement of the OpenSSL, we added SSL support for already mentioned for the binary for protobin. Also the CacheDB Redis, the RabbitMQ consumer, they have support for encryption, and there is work in progress for TLS SSL support in DB Postgres. So we try to expand as much as possible the TLS support. And the last but not the least, thanks to Maxim Sobolev, now in 3.2 we have full support for the new RFC 8760. Basically, there are new algorithms, more, if I can say so, more secure algorithms for authentication, the SHA-256 and SHA-512256. So if you can do authentication in a very, very secure way, comparing with the MD5 algorithm, which is currently used by most of the SIP devices, which become quite weak in nowadays. So Max, thanks for your contribution on this. Also, thanks to Flavio for working with Max in order to incorporate this into OpenSIPS. We are running a bit of time, but Razvan will understand. So I'm buying 5 minutes from him.
Wow, you did not get a note.
Well, you know how it's a movie. It's that's an offer you cannot refuse.
I'm actually looking at Razvan right now, and he's crying.
In terms of improvements for the things that we already had, but of course, all the time we try to make them in a better way. We have the back-to-back support, the CPUA support in OpenSIPS. And for the people using it, do you know, okay, the back-to-back scenarios are controlled by some XML files, which are really ugly and very hard to use because they are completely isolated, these XML files, from the actual OpenSIPS script. So you cannot pass data, you cannot, let's say, pass conditions. You can interact between the XML file and the OpenSIPS config file. So it was to a certain point very, very difficult again to use. So we said, okay, if we have the OpenSIPS script, which becomes a very, very, let's say, powerful way of controlling, how things should happen, then we said, why not actually using the OpenSIPS routing script in order to control the back-to-back. So we dropped the XML file, and now the B2B scenarios or the B2B behavior may be controlled directly from the OpenSIPS script, and this gives you a lot of better a lot of improvements, because you can interact with the variables in at the script level. You can test conditions in a more flexible way. You have support for sessions, so you can remember information during the B2B session and so on. So it's a very, very improved way of controlling the back-to-back scenarios. And Vlad Petrashku will actually have a workshop on Monday, on next week, about this. He will show like how ugly the XML control was before and how easy you can do now or natural way you can do now using the OpenSIPS script for more or less doing the same kind of back-to-back scenarios. And some small additions, small but interesting, to be mentioned before ending. We have the advanced tracing. Tracing, it's also like monitoring a hot topic, because all the time you want to see, okay, how your traffic is going on through the platform. So basically this is a never-ending work. And in 3.2 we added awareness for the tracing at the B2B level. So basically, when you have a back-to-back scenario, you can say, okay, I want to monitor all the traffic related to this back-to-back session. So you have the full data. Doesn't matter how many legs or how many packages are in this back-to-back session. You will get them all with just one single line of configuration. Also, we did some work to improve the correlation between tracing different calls, so that you can get nicer ladders, single ladders in Homer when it comes to showing together multiple calls. And some useful feature. You may select when you do tracing, dialog level tracing, if you want to trace a caller or callee side only for the call. What's the idea? Consider that you may have a chain of OpenSIPs, like an OpenSIPS SBC and then an OpenSIPS proxy. Both are doing tracing, but you don't want to do double tracing for the traffic between them, because that will be visible for both instances. So in that case, let's say on the back-to-back, on the SBC side, OpenSIPS SBC, you can say, okay, I just want to trace only the exterior side, so the facing the user. And for the traffic between the SBC and the proxy, I'll let the proxy do the tracing. So the SBC will trace only one side, caller or callee, depending how the call comes in or out. You can have, there is a blog over here for some nice descriptions. Getting with that's really something weird, but at the end quite useful. There's a long discussion about doing MI commands from the script. I'm saying weird because by definition the MI, it's a management interface supposed to be a way of interacting with the external scripts, external systems. So why should you try to use it from the script? But it's useful because the MI interface provides a lot of functionality which are or commands which are not actually available at the script. They don't have equivalent in the script. So triggering from the script, like I want from the script to do a reload, it's much easier because instead of implementing a lot of functions, the equivalent of the functions, the MI commands to have them also as functions in the script. So I think that was on the wish list for a couple of years, and thanks to Razvan, we have it now in 3.2. And also some addition from Razvan about again for tracing. It's about the backend logging, trying to do tracing not only to HAP, to Homer or to the database, but also to logs or files. So just the extension on where to send the traces. So if you want to do some very, very simple tracing, you can just do it now by sending everything to the syslog or to a specific file. As you see there, we have a lot of features. Some of them will be again expanded by our developers during this summit with more with really deep details. I just try to offer you like a big picture in terms of what we tried to cover with this 3.2 release. I know it's a lot of information to digest, but you should be aware of all these additions because they may be something really useful for you in terms of building or managing your SIP platforms. So thank you for your patience, for attention to the presentation. Sorry again, especially to Razvan for overflowing in terms of time. But I will pass the blame to Alex. He talked too much in the very beginning, so he used like 10 minutes from my time. So I'm just passing the overflow further to the next one. So probably,
shots fired.
Yep, smoking gun. Yeah. So again, thank you for paying attention to this. And I hope this 3.2 will be a really good, friend of yours for developing platforms. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you, Bogdan. That was actually really an amazing overview of everything we're going to get to see for the rest of the week. And that really exciting. There's some really great features in there. You guys did an amazing job. Thank you again for everything that you do for the community and for all of us using OpenSIPS.
We have to keep in mind that it's a collective effort by the simple fact that, okay, I was the one presenting this overview doesn't mean that everything somehow it's my, it was done by me. Actually, most, like 90% of the things were done, by, it was like a team effort and also a lot of contributions. So it's something that we need to share.
I think what you're saying, Bogdan, is that it's mainly Live You, Razvan, and the community, and you spend a lot of time at the beach.
That's an undisclosed information.
Wow. That's why there's a palm tree next to you on Slack all the time.
No. It's not there. You can check it. It's not there anymore.
Thank you again for the presentation, Bogdan. I don't want to actually take any more time, so we're really going to kind of hold questions until like after the next set of after the next presentation. Anyway, like Bogdan said, a lot of this is going to be done or actually gone over by the core developers in their presentation. So we apologize for not taking any questions at this time. So we need to get Mr. Razvan queued up here. He'll be presenting to us the next presentation of the day, which is RTP relaying and failover using media re-anchoring in OpenSIPS 3.2. And as you can see, Razvan is coming to us from the lobby of the Amsterdam venue that we usually are at. He's managed to transport himself there somehow.
Nice background.
So,
well, it's actually Lorenzo's idea. I just moved here.
wow.
Before starting, just for everyone, keep in mind anytime if you have questions, you can use the Slack to push the questions, even if they are not taken, during at the end of the presentation. We will address them, like offline the actual presentation. So just post questions, we will answer them.
Great.
Yeah. Okay.
So without any further ado, Razvan, take the stage.
Thank you, Alex. What I was going to say is that we still have some questions in the YouTube channel. If you do have a chance to put them on Slack, that would be great because we can answer them after the talk. Okay, getting back to my presentation. Today I will be talking about RTP relaying and failover using a new technique that we somehow developed, let's say, called media re-anchoring. This is available starting with OpenSIPS 3.2, and let's see what we can do with it. But first things first, well, you probably all know what a media server relay is. In SIP, we have basically two channels. One of them is SIP and the other one is RTP. SIP usually goes through a proxy like OpenSIPS is. RTP goes directly between the two endpoints. However, there are different scenarios that we will see later where a media relay is necessary, so that OpenSIPS, so that the endpoints will no longer talk directly to each other due to, for example, not traversal issues, but rather through a media relay. As I said, one of these cases is not traversal, well, where, for example, Alice is not able to reach Bob because Bob is behind the firewall, and he's not, and Alice can't crack that firewall by itself. And the same thing, Bob can crack Alice's firewall. So the solution is to add a media relay that sits on a public network, and each endpoint is able to reach the media relay without any problems. Once the firewall is opened by the source, in this case by either Alice or Bob, RTP can flow both directions. But it's important that the clients behind the NAT traversal will open the port. Otherwise, the router will block any traffic. Another common scenario where you would use media relay is if you are offering like PSTN termination and you don't want your gateway to see your customer's IPs. What you do is move all the traffic through the media relay, and the gateway will only see the media relay's IP. This is something that you control, so basically you will not disclose any information on the actual caller. Another scenario is where you, for example, want to do some sort of trust coding. So you have Alice talking PCMU, but Bob here doesn't speak PCMU, but rather it speaks Opus. So you need to do some sort of transcoding because they don't. If they would have talked to each other, they wouldn't have understood them, each other. That's another scenario. And why not, if you have here Alice, which basically talks plain SIP, and here a browser, which according to the WebRTC standards, it's not allowed to talk plain RTP and has to talk with SRTP. If you don't have a media relay to be able to do this conversion, you will not be able to, the two endpoints will not be able to hear each other. So as you've seen, there are different scenarios that media relay is used for, and I bet the majority of the users that are listening to me are already deploying a media relay for one of these reasons. So let's get a bit more details about how the media relays work and how we used to use them in OpenSIPS. So we have different media relay server. It's RTP proxy, which is developed and by Maxim and maintained by the CP software. We have media proxy, which is maintained by AG projects. We also have RTP engine, which is maintained by SIPwise. Each of these flavor media relay servers come with different flavors, different capabilities, different settings that each of them are more or less different. Although RTP engine tried to map as much as possible on the RTP proxy at the beginning, they soon forked and started to have their own protocol and their own way of doing media relay. This is some sort of overview. So in OpenSIPS, each RTP media backend is implemented by a different module: RTP proxy by RTP proxy, media proxy by media proxy, RTP engine, of course, by media by RTP engine. And each of these modules offer a different interface in the script. For example, in RTP proxy, we need to use RTP proxy offer for all initial and sequential requests, and RTP proxy answer for their replies. We need to use RTP proxy delete when we terminate the session. we can use RTP proxy engage in order to take care of sequential requests as well. In media proxy, we have other sets. In RTP engine, we have different other functions that have different meanings. For example, RTP manage, although it looks like RTP engage, in reality, it is just used to pick one of the offer, answer, or delete messages. So it's not quite the same. Furthermore, each module has its own set of flags. For example, in RTP proxy, we have O, C, R, Z, T. In RTP engine, we have the expanded version, like replace origin, trust the address, use an RTP or AVP type of RTP. We will see about this a bit more. But the idea is that each of these media servers are supported by OpenSIPS in one way or the other. However, in practice, you might need to use both. You might have setups that you need to use both, and we will get to see how these are being used right now, and try to simplify that as much as possible. That's what our goal was from the beginning. So a common way of using media relay, a simple way of doing it, is whenever you get an invite from Alice that has an SDP, we call RTP proxy offer. Now, note that this offer has basically two different type of flags. The first set of flag is flags associated to the user, to the peer that originated that request. In our case, R, which means to trust the user's IP, and S, saying that the RTP is symmetric with this user. I'm not getting into details what each of these mean, but it's just to show the idea that they are different and why they are different. So it is different because it's this R says, hey, this guy's IP should be trusted. So I'm not talking about Bob. I'm talking about Alice's IP. The same is with S. The other set is describing how the remote endpoint should or what should be presented to the remote endpoint. For example, if we use the C flag, we're saying, hey, change the session C line as well. This happens, for example, it's not necessary to change it because if you have like a media C line, the session one is ignored. However, if you are trying to somehow hide the IP of the endpoint, you probably want to change all the IPs in the SDP. This is exactly what the O flag does as well. So you don't, in order for the RTP to work fine, you don't need these two lines. You don't need to change the O or the session C line. Z says to change the P time so that if Alice is sending like a 20 milliseconds P time, you will have to forward packets every 30 milliseconds, right? So again, this is a description about Bob. It's not something that Alice would be impacted. Once we get a new SDP from RTP proxy, we forward it to Bob. Bob interprets it and then replies with a 200 OK. In this case, again, we have a different, we need to use a different function. It's RTP proxy answer, which has, again, two sets of flags. One is for the peer that originated the call. In this case, it's Bob. And we're saying, hey, we are using an asymmetric RTP with Bob. And again, the CNO flags to make sure that we are changing the entire SDP before forwarding it to Alice. So this slides always actually only aims to show you that we have at least two different types of flags whenever we do we run a command to RTP proxy. Let's get into a more complex scenario here. I see I have a bug. Okay, so here Alice sends an invite to OpenSIPS. OpenSIPS does a RTP engine offer, which uses some different flags. It uses the trust address, which again is talking about is the same thing that RTP proxy R flag does. It's saying, hey, you should trust Alice's IP. So this is about Alice. We're using replace origin and replace session connection, which is basically the same that we were doing with CNO flags in RTP proxy, except that we made them, I think this is purple. We made them purple because we will see this in every single request to RTP engine. However, as you can see here, we have two different endpoints. So we are forking Alice's call to both Bob, which is a SIP, like a plain SIP endpoint, and a browser. That's why, since we are doing two branches, we need to specify the via branch that's going to Bob. We call this RTP engine offer. We get an SDP, send it to Bob, but then we need to reach Charlie as well. So we need to do another RTP engine offer, a second one. Again, we use trust address because, well, it's about Alice. So we still need to trust Alice's address. The same common replace origin flags. We are using a via branch, a new via branch, indicating to RTP engine that, hey, this is not the same. We are not trying to modify this session. We are trying to create a new one. And create this one using the UDP TLS, basically DTLS SRTP. This is required by browsers. Whenever Charlie replies, we call RTP engine delete on via branch 0 because we will not establish the call between Alice and Bob, but rather between Alice and Charlie. So we need to send via branch RTP engine delete, and then RTP engine answer back for the reply back to Alice, which again contains trust address. That's this time trust address is black because it describes the behavior of Charlie. Replace origin and replace session connection, which is common, as you can see, to all the communication except for the via, because you don't have an SDP, except for delete, sorry, because you don't have an SDP there. And we are requesting RTP AVP because we need plain RTP towards Alice. So as you can see, if you have like a more complex scenario, that's not going to be easy because all this has to be done in script. All that I've showed you here has to be done in script, and it might not get that easy whenever you want to code this. Moreover, whenever someone tries to use RTP proxy or RTP relay for their setup, I've noticed throughout the years there are some common problems. First of it, nobody takes into account that they need to handle multiple branches, probably because not all of them do have, or probably because that's implemented directly by the lookup function, so you're somehow not aware that your script uses multiple branches. That's why if you have like different destinations, you might one of them might work and the other one might not, whenever doing either parallel or serial forking. Another problem that I noticed is that even if you manage to see that you have multiple branches, some of you don't terminate those branches. This will generate a branch leaking. And although this doesn't have like a very bad impact on the user's UX, on his on his experience. Sorry, that's what I was looking for. Although he doesn't have a bad experience, gathering these leaking branches will avoid the performance of the server. So it's a good way to clean it whenever a branch removes. Otherwise, your memory will increase, your file descriptors will run out, and so forth and so on. Another thing that I saw like a common problem is that people don't handle terminated calls, and it's the very same problem, because whenever you get a buy, you will not have audio at all. So people like customers will not complain. However, those calls sessions will leak into RTP proxy or RTP engines memory. And even if they do have some, because both of them or all of them have protection to remove them after a certain while, that defaults probably to something like 60 seconds. So in 60 seconds, you might end up having like thousands of leaked sessions in memory. That will probably affect the performance of the server. And probably the widely used one, I'm saying it because I've actually gone through all these at least once in my life, and about this one I go like every single setup, because you focus a lot to get the initial invite in place, that you forget that you also need to terminate calls, and or you forget to also you need to handle re-invites or updates. For example, if the call gets unmuted, you probably notice that whenever you unmute it, you'll no longer be able to hear the other person. Well, that's because you're not handling re-invites, or you're not handling them properly. And there are a few tips and tricks, let's say, that could be done. For example, RTP proxy does have some the RTP engine engage function, which can be used to handle these re-invites and updates. In reality, it's not that that easy to do it. And honestly, even though I made that function, it doesn't behave correctly, especially when you have like multiple interfaces that have to be switched. So all these are problems that problems. I should not call them problems, because all of them more or less do have solutions, but all those solutions require a lot of coding and a lot of exercise from you in order to get it right. That's why we decided to make the new RTP relay module. And this new module aims to simplify the way how media relays are used from the script. So as I was saying earlier, RTP proxy has its own set of commands. RTP engine, which is a different module that only talks to RTP engine nodes, have a completely different set of commands. They kind of do the same thing, but they use different flags and so forth. So before 3.2, you were using this, and you needed to do some sort of nasty logic in order to implement all the behavior that I talked about earlier. Now in OpenSIPS 3.2, we came up with a new module called RTP Relay, which changes a bit the way script writers will use the media relay. First of all, let's see what their goal is. The first goal is to be as generic as possible. So we wanted this module to be as generic as possible, so that it can offer a common interface for all the supported backends. Therefore, as you can notice here from the script, you will not have a specific set of function that will work only with the RTP, with the media relay engine that you will be using. You will be able to use these primitives for any media relay you will be using. Another goal is to be simple. We want to minimize the script interaction. And we do that by only describing properties of the participants that will be engaged in the call. And we only do that when the call starts. All the other events will be automatically handled by the module. Correctness. We want to avoid mistakes. As I've said, it's quite hard to get it right, like parallel or serial forking in OpenSIPS when you have media relay engaged. The module aims, or the module's goal was to create an automatic way of handling these serial branches without too much trouble from script writers. And of course, to be complete. This means handle branches and call termination, things that I was saying people forget to do, and handle re-invites and updates. Again, everything is done, should be done by the new module, and it's being done by the new module. So as I said, again, RTP, the main purpose of RTP Relay was to simplify as much as possible the way we interact with script from media relays perspective. But that meant that we needed to change a bit the way we configure or we interact with the media relays. That's how we came up with 3 different primitives. Two variables that are used to describe properties or flags of the current peer, basically the peer that generated the message that we are processing. And a function that basically engages or starts, instructs OpenSIPS, hey, from this point, you have to do what you know better. So again, imagine that it's a change of perspective. Up until now, we were acting like event-based. Whenever we had a request, we would first of all see, hey, what do I know about the source of this message? We have to trust address. We have to do symmetric NAT, and then what do we know about the destination of the message? We need to change the connection session line. We need to change the origin line, and so forth and so on. And we do that for every single event, like for every single request. On the way back, we need to do the same with the 200 OK message that was sent. The new module offers a completely different perspective. So instead of acting based on the messages, whenever the call starts, so at the initial invite, we somehow create some sort of RTP relay profile, right? So we're saying, for example, for the current peer, which is the variable, or for the current peer, we need to populate the RTP relay variable, and we can populate different settings. For example, we can populate flags. These are generic flags that should be sent whenever we generate an SDP for that peer. For example, here we can have the C and O, the replace connection session and replace origin flags. We can also set the IP that should be advertised to this peer. We can also set the type of RTP that should be used for the current peer. For example, whether we want to do RTP, SRTP, DTL SRTP, or SDSRTP. Here we specify the type of SDP that of RTP that we want. We also specify that the interface that should be used when we communicate with this peer. And of course, we can also specify whether it's disabled or not. So, for example, if we engage RTP relay, but we don't want to do RTP relay for certain branches, then we have to explicitly disable those branches. So we have the RTP relay variable that specifies the flags that should be used for the caller or for the initiator of the message, because it's not only for the caller, it's also for, it can also be for the callee if the callee sends a sequential request or an in-dialog request. And we can also change the information or the flags or the settings, the profile of the peer. We do that using the RTP relay peer variable, and has the very same behavior as RTP, except it's for the other peer. So in a call, we have 2 peers. We have the caller and callee, or the originator of the message and the originator of the reply. We have to control each of these sites. That's what the module offers using these 2 variables. And once we set all these flags, and we don't have to, actually not once we set it, but we can call RTP relay engine engage anytime. I'm saying we can call it anytime because we usually do it once during the initial request, but for each branch or for each reply, or even for each reply, or even for a sequential request, we can change any of these flags in order to adjust the peer's settings. Here is a short example of, for example, bridging a UDP source to a WebSocket destination. So here in the request route, we will use replace origin, replace session connection. We will use these flags in order to present a fully updated SDP that doesn't leak any information about the other participants' IPs. We will say that this relay is RTP, so basically it's plain RTP, and we remove any ICE candidates because, well, probably the endpoint doesn't support ICE. And then all we have to do is simply call RTP relay engage. However, in the branch route, I'm saying in the branch route because we have to do this per branch. We can do it from the request route as well. We can index the branches from request route as well, but that means we have to index each of these variable, and it's not nice. And we usually don't even know from the request route the order of the branches in order to understand exactly what's the branch that they should be using. That's why I'm doing this for simplicity in script. It's better to do it in branch route. So here, in branch route, we are giving flags about the destination, right? So that's why we are using the RTP relay peer flags. We could have done this in the 200 OK message, and we wouldn't have to use the underscore peer. But now I just wanted to show you the way we are using RTP relay peer variable as well. So here we configure everything about the WSS destination. We could have had like a flag here. If the destination is WSS, do this, otherwise do this, right? And that would mean that we support both the WSS destination and UDP destination. And it's as simple as that. So this code basically handles every single branch created to WSS, because you may have like multiple branches. It handles every single sequential, and also terminates closed branches and the call itself whenever it gets deleted. So that's the whole thing that you need to do with RTP relay, and of course to load the module. The module itself doesn't manage the backend nodes, so you will still have to load the RTP proxy module, the RTP engine module. You can still configure each of these of their nodes in a script, both in script and in a database. You will still be able to group nodes based on the set, based on set, and here as you can specify the set to the RTP relay engage module, the set that you want to use for that specific call, and so forth. In terms of implementation, it depends on the transaction module because we need the transaction module in order to properly manage started and terminated branches. We need the dialog module in order to first store the flags associated with each participant and also hook on the events for either updating the session, like reinvite, and either terminating the session. So basically, the dialog module in OpenSIPS is the guy that triggers us this event. So we need to hook on it. And then the module does all its logic behind the wheel. So you don't need to do anything explicit rather than specifying the profile of the peer. Of course, you may create different scenarios. For example, if you want to start the call using SRTP for one participant, but then you decide you want to do plain RTP, or the other way around, you can update those flags for in dialog request, and they will reflect in the generated sequential messages. But if you don't want to do that, or if you don't need to do that, you don't have to bother with that much scripting. And that's basically what one of the goal of the module was, to simplify the script usage. But that is not it. So now that we simplified, so actually adding the RTP relay module, besides having the logic done by the module itself, we have another valuable things as well. The fact that we know each participant of the call, we know the RTP profile of each participant of the call. So this means that in order to for example, if you want to handle sequential requests, we don't have to do that manually. Up until now, probably you've done it, or if you've done it, you would have done something like, if the direction is downstream, get the profile of the caller somehow, probably from the dialog or from the cache or from whatever. Otherwise get the profile of the callee and try to match with the appropriate flags. That's a mess. If you haven't done it, stop doing it and use RTP relay. If you've done it, I bet RTP relay, I hope at least RTP relay does it better. But as I said, that's not it. The fact that we have this profile of the nodes gives us a bit more flexibility or a bit more knowledge about the media involved in the call. So imagine the following scenario. You have a call that's established through OpenSIPS, and the media flows through a media relay RTP. Everything runs okay, but suddenly this media relay crashes. What will happen is that immediately the RTP streams will basically disappear because there's no one here able to relay traffic between Alice and the gateway. So our idea was, why not power up a new? Let's power up a new media relay. Now the problem is that most likely this new media relay, if you don't have any failover setup, like a virtual IP or something like that, to be able to move it from this node to this node, the gateways and the Alice will continue sending to the IP they know. So our idea was from OpenSIPS, because we know this, we know the profile of each of the calls participant. Why not tell them to update their IP and start pointing to a new media relay? So this will definitely offer media relay failover. This is what we call media re-anchoring. So in terms of SIP flow, you probably know how media relay works. You get an invite where Alice presents its SDP. Then you query the media relay and get its own SDP. For example, in our case here, we query MS1, media server 1, and we present to Bob the media server 1 SDP. Therefore, Bob will start talking to media server 1. Then when Bob sends the 200 OK with his own SDP, we instruct that to media server 1, and Alice will start talking to media server 1 as well. So here we have two different streams, RTP streams, MS1 to Alice and MS1 to Bob. As long as MS1 is alive, the call will work out just great, so the two participants will be able to hear each other. But what happens if MS1 disappear? Basically, the entire RTP flow disappears. But now that we still have another media server here, what we can do is trigger a reinvite to Bob's, and instead of advertising MS1 in SDP, we advertise MS2. So at this point, Bob will stop sending the RTP to MS1 and move it to MS2. Of course, Bob will say, hey, 200 OK with his SDP. Hey, okay, I got this. I updated my session. What we need to do is say the same thing. Well, here the arrow should be in the opposite direction. Okay. But yeah, here we will say, we will send a reinvite to Alice, and then Alice will start sending RTP to MS2. And as you can see, as soon as we do this, we will have again, both media will have media in both directions. Media re-anchoring. There are plenty of use cases where you would do that. For example, as I've shown you for media high availability, whenever a node crashes, you can move the sessions on a different node. But that's not only it. We can use it, for example, to scale up. If you have a few RTP proxy or RTP engine nodes that are quite busy because there's a lot of traffic on them, you can always power up new ones. And if you have like long calls, you can start moving existing ongoing live calls from a more utilized server to a less utilized one. You can do also the opposite direction, for example, to scale down. So instead of disabling the user, probably that's what I've done it up until now. Whenever I want to do some maintenance to an RTP proxy node or RTP engine node, I would have taken it out of route and wait for all the calls to finish. That might take even days because some customers can have day-long calls. You don't have to do that. You can scale down quite easy by disabling the node and then rebalance the traffic across all the existing nodes. You can also do live switching between SRTP and RTP. For example, let's say you start a call that it suddenly becomes interesting. For example, you call to a bank and suddenly start to provide them credit card details. You probably want to do that during SRTP. What you can do is, for example, send a DTMF to activate the SRTP profile, and then you will be able to switch. For example, if you started the call to without RTP, you can switch to an SRTP profile. You can do that as well. This is done. So in order to do this, you have two different commands, two different MI commands. So all this failover or all this re-anchoring is triggered through MI, and there are two different flavors. The first one, RTP relay update, is used to bulk update all the ongoing session. This is useful, for example, when a node crashes. You don't want to cherry pick each call that was using that node and start migrating it. No, what you can do is trigger this command and it will automatically rebalance everything. And if the node crashed, it will be disabled, so it will no longer be picked in the choosing algorithm. Of course, you can force to use a new node or a new set, and you can also filter the nodes that you want to update as well. However, what you will not be able to do is you will not be able to change the media relay engine that was using. So if you started the call using RTP proxy, you will need to switch all the calls to the same type of RTP relay, in our case RTP proxy. However, the other command, RTP relay update call ID, is more granular because it addresses only one call identified by the call ID. So you will only be able to change or update a specific call. So even though it's more granular, it provides you more control. So as I said, you filter based on call ID. You can force a call to use a new node. But you can also force the flags to be updated. The fact that you can force the flags to be updated, you can, as I said, you can use it to switch from RTP to SRTP or back. Moreover, the fact that you can force the flags, you can also switch the media engine relay. So if, for example, I started the call using replace origin and trust address, and I want to migrate to RTP proxy, so those were RTP engine specific flags. If I want to migrate to RTP proxy, I will have to explicitly write a conversion for that flag. So I would have to explicitly use the CO flags. And that's because, as I said earlier, each backend uses its own flavor of flags. Unfortunately, there is not a full compatibility between them, so we really can't create like a generic interface yet. We are planning to do that, but it's not yet available. That's why migrating, for example, even in the script, if you have used RTP proxy and RTP engine, if you are using RTP engine and you want to migrate to RTP proxy, all you have to do is change the flags to the flavor that you will be using. Also, you have to make sure, if you do a live migration, for example, you have to make sure that the backend supports it. For example, if you want to do SRTP to RTP for a call, and you want to migrate to RTP proxy, unfortunately, that's not yet available. So if the backend doesn't support it, your call will not work properly, and this means that the reinvite will be rejected. So the call will still use the old node. More or less, that was it. If you want to find out more about this, you can sign up for the Tuesday training. So it's in the summit's 7th day on 14th of September 2021. This is going to be a 4 hours hands-on training, which will focus on WebRTC, RTP relay, media re-anchoring, as well as Grafana and Prometheus statistics. And you will also get some useful tips and tricks about tracing, about WebRTC and stuff like that. So if you are interested in this, make sure you sign up for this for the training. You can find a few resources on our documentation page about more information about the RTP relay module. More information about re-anchoring can be found in this blog post that I've written a few months ago. And again, if you want to get some hands-on experience, you should try to attend our training on Tuesday. Not sure if I have time for a small demo. Do I still have time? Let's quickly.
That's up to Flavio.
Well, we can squeeze it for like 5 minutes. Come on.
Go ahead.
Do the squeeze.
My presentation is not too big. Go ahead.
It's probably less than 5 minutes. So here I have a phone that is being set up. Let me increase the volume, and I will stop sharing and share an SM grep. Let me wait. Sure. Yeah, we'll see SM grep. Hopefully.
Yeah, but if you can increase the fonts, will be really nice.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, but I'm not sure why it's not working.
Oh yeah, the other direction.
Yeah. Is it better now?
Bigger the better. Right. It's okay.
Okay, let me try to make a call. Here. Do you hear anything? I'm not hearing anything. Just a second. Oh, okay. Okay, you hear it, right? Hopefully.
What a nice music.
Yeah. So let's take a look here. Oh, I increase my. Okay, let me try again, please. That's because I broke my resolution. Okay. Yeah, unfortunately, when I make it this big. Okay, let's see. Okay. So here, this is the initial invite from my phone. This is the link phone. And this is my IP. This is my public IP. This is what I'm advertising in my SDP. What I'm sending to my carrier is something different. This is the my server's RTP IP, RTP engine IP, and of course here I have a different server. This is from the gateway, and I'm advertising the same. So what I'm trying to show you is that everything now goes through through a media server, and here I have the other media server. Oops. That says CTL stop RTP engine. Okay, now I turned off RTP engine. So as you can see, you're no longer hearing anything. However, if I run the, oops, okay, just a second. Reload. Not sure why I don't have any available. There you go. Okay. As you can see, now the audio is back. Not sure why the other RTP engine was disabled. Sure. As you can see, I have two nodes here, and one of them is disabled. This is the local one, and now I'm using the other one, the one with 168.71.68.2. If you go back to our screen, you'll notice here there was a re-invite with the IP that I was using. Moreover, if I activate the RTP stats, you will see that RTP will start going through this machine.
You can press F3 and you will see into the ladder which one is.
All right, this or
F3.
Doesn't work for me. Sorry. Yeah, I can see here, but yeah, but anyway, this is what I wanted to show you, that even if I crash the RTP engine server, I can recover it. I can go through a different one and recover the RTP using the new RTP relay. Okay, that was my presentation. If you guys have any questions, do let me know.
I'm mostly interested into always into this kind of media, particularly in relationship with WebRTC, etc. So I will start now, and then I will probably tempest you in Slack and email list and all the channels that we have. But for what you are exposed is definitely I mean a big achievement, because all the logic is embedded into the module, and we just need to grab from Kohler and Kali what are their specific way to communicate, and then all the logic will work for us. But it seems too good to be true, and the question is, it's really possible that it works in each and every case, that we have so many lines in the script just to manage all the crossing of this.
Yeah, it's quite easy, because as you've seen, you only have to change in two different spots: for the request invite, for the initial request, sorry, and for the branch route, because that's where you have the callee information, and that's it. Once you gather all this information, the module stores everything, and it will be able to use them accordingly. Yeah, so that was the.
And it works flawlessly. For example, typical case when there is music on hold, so a re-invite.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If it does not, you open a ticket. You know the drill.
Then you're actually running.
Actually, that's how I tested the re-invites, right? That's the way
Yeah, I have question, different question, Razvan. What is the kind of latency you expect? Is there in like audio issues if I try to switch live from one call, from one media relay to another? Because I would imagine it takes a little bit of time to.
Currently there's no way of auto detecting this, unfortunately. So you have to build your own monitoring systems or something like that to notice that the node is down. For RTP proxy, we do have, I think it's called ERTP proxy status event, which is triggered when RTP proxy, when OpenSIPS learns that the node is not available. It will trigger the event, and from the event, you will be able to run the scripts to update all the sessions. So it's probably a couple of milliseconds until you figure it out. But once you detect the crash, it's probably like a few like a handshake. You have to send the invite, get the 200 OK, send the re-invite, get the other 200 OK, and now you don't actually need the other 200 OK because it was already negotiated between the initial invite and the known SDP. Right. So it's quite, I would say it's quite fast.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. There are a few questions. I don't know if we have time for that. There are a few questions on the.
I think that we've eaten enough of Flavio's time here, unfortunately.
Yes. Thank you, Flavio, and I sincerely apologize for that. It's
Razvan, can I just
you have time. No worries.
Razvan, can I jump in and ask you to check out the main summit channel? Because there's a couple of questions in the main summit channel.
Sure. Yes, I will do that as soon as Flavio starts taking off his presentation. So thank you very much, guys, for listening to me. And yeah, see you on.
Awesome. Let's give this guy a round of applause. Thank you, Razvan. That was awesome.
Thank you as well. Cheers.
Wow.
So again,
with this technology, there's a good way to reduce costs, to use spot requests, spot instance, actually. Kind of interesting. Really, sometimes we create something with one purpose, and then it can be repurposed to many things. Interesting. Let me share my screen.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of Razvan's presentation. Coming up next, we have the infamous Flavio. He's going to be talking to us about SIP routing by time and time zone. And again, we apologize for any cutting it short for questions, but the Slack channels are open for any questions, and Razvan will be there to answer them for you. So without any further ado, Flavio, are you all set? Flavio, is he jammed? Ah, there he is. Excellent.
Yeah. Excellent. Oh, nice.
Take it away, Flavio. Thank you so much.
You hear me, right?
Okay. We hear you. Yep. We see your presentation.
Good. Well, let's start. And the name of this presentation is Time Recurrence and Repurposing Modules Through Partitioning, and an alternative way to develop your scripts. Well, this year, I had to rewrite some of the scripts I had written in 2010 or 2011 using OpenSIPS 1.4, 1.5. I don't remember exactly which ones, but they were very old ones. And one of the challenges I had was to rebuild a script called time routing. And then I realized that OpenSIPS, mainly the new version 3.2, it has some goodies that we can use to develop routing by time. Let me explain a little further. I have two objectives here. The first one is to, after the end of the presentation, you know how to route by time efficiently. And I believe you're going to realize that you can improve script efficiency by reusing existing modules for purpose different than the original ones, actually the purpose of partitioning. So we're going to talk a little bit about partitioning. So in the first place, before we start talking about the scripting, let me explain what's the problem we are trying to solve. The problem I was trying to solve was in a cloud PBX, we should determine what are known business hours to take inbound routing decisions. So whenever you're developing a cloud PBX, you need to, on the inbound calls, usually the first decision is, are we on business hours or are we on non-business hours? Because it's probably the first routing decision. And it seems a simple problem, but when you are on a cloud, you have a lot of requirements. In the first place, you need to do it per customer. Each customer will have their own business hours. You need to support time zones. So if you have customers from different places on the planet, you have to support different time zones. So you have different rules, different holidays, different, as an example, in US is usual to work 9 to 5. In Brazil, it's 8 to noon and 2 to 6. So it's different everywhere. So we need to support many different types of routing per time. It needs to be fast. So anything on OpenSIPS, we should run from memory, not from the database, and should be easy to implement. So that was the objective. That was the problem. So my problem was to implement routing by time in an easy way per customer, supporting time zones, loading things not directly from the database inside the script. So at the end of the day, I would need to have something like an interface like this, like edit time routing, where I want to put my business hours or non-business hours from one time to another time, add all of them, and have them assigned to a specific user or to a specific group or something like this, right? So that's the whole idea of the time routing. Well, this was the first try that I did probably 10 years ago. I had a route called time routing. I've created a standard using very similar to what we have on Chrome, on the Chrome daemon, to do the recurrence. It takes the first, this script had 140 lines, and it uses AVPDB queries, so it goes to the database, and it was hard to maintain, it was hard to develop, and was prone to errors. We had to rebuild it a few times, and I didn't want to use this one. So I wanted to have something simpler. One of the things that I've learned on the newer versions, so problems in the first version, requires 2 tables. It was non-standard, roughly based on the Chrome syntax. No caching. It requires a query and a loop over fetched record. So it was slow, complex. So the idea was to simplify the routing by time. Time recurrence on OpenSIPS. So on OpenSIPS, since the version 1.9, I don't know if you remember, we have time recurrence on the dynamic routing, right? And most of the people already knows that on dynamic routing, you can set rules by time. One of the things that I didn't realize when dynamic routing was launched, that there was actually a function on the CFG utils.so module called the check time recurrence. And then you can specify a time string or a timestamp. It exists since the OpenSIPS 1.9.x, and actually I have to admit that I just discovered this a few years ago, maybe 8 years after the 1.9.x, because once I tried to create just a sheet of all the commands of OpenSIPS, even using a small layer, it was 6 pages of A4, so it's not easy to build a simple piece of paper with all the available functions and commands. There are so many. And check time recurrence uses a different format. So the first thing I thought is maybe I could use the check time recurrence instead of the big script, the script that I wanted to get rid. So I started to study the format of the time recurrence. So there's the common check time recurrence, time string, and timestamp. The first problem I had was the time zones. This check time recurrence didn't support time zones, something that was fixed on the OpenSIPS 3.2. So on the OpenSIPS 3.2, you now have support. Don't worry, I don't want you to read all the instructions of the check time recurrence. I'll just give you the notion that this is the module. And if you look at the time string and time zone, it's kind of a bit of complicated. But here on the check time recurrence, we have this chip. The fields were identical to the ones in the RFC 2445. Okay, let's go there and see. Let's decipher how to write these time strings. So I went to the RFC 2445 and I discovered that this RFC is about the iCal. So iCal is a calendaring standard. This is the standard for calendaring, standard for the agenda, for scheduling. So the format was time zone, date of start, date of end, duration, frequency, until the interval, by date. So, wow, very complicated. Time zone is new on the OpenSIPS 3.2. So date of start and date of end was actually very simple to discover how it works. But the rest was a bit complicated. Then realizing that this is about scheduling, I discovered that if you're using the Google Agenda, you're going to see that the fields are exactly the same. So whenever you are scheduling an event, you're doing more or less the same thing. You're generating something such as that string, the RFC 2445, a string similar. So if you start scheduling an event, you have date of start, date of end, time zone, and then the frequency changers, right? So repeat every 1 week. So this is the interval. Frequency, weekly, yearly. Repeat on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Repeat until and after a certain amount of occurrences that it's on the standard, it's count. So the standard is not exactly equals to the RFC 2445. Actually, the standard, what you have on OpenSIPS, if you look at the documentation, is the syntax of each field is identical to the corresponding field on the RFC 2445, but not exactly the same. So sounds great. So now we have a standard. I don't need to use the Chrome syntax anymore. And now I know more or less how to build the time string. So this is a time string. So date of start. Date of start, you can use the year, month, and day. Then the time, the hour, minute, and second. Or I can use the time zone in front of the date of start. This saved a lot of time. So you can now add the time zone directly to the time string. Sounds great, no? And then the duration. The duration is a little bit more complicated, but it can be as simple as 8 hours. So put a digit in an hour, or put a P and a digit in an 8 hour. Both standards work. Or something complicated like a duration date, like P15 DT, P15 days, 5 hours, 0 minute, and 20 seconds. So it can become very complicated if you want. But for us, for the purpose of this presentation, we don't need to create very complicated strings. Probably simple strings will make the trick, because what we want is just to define business hours or non-business hours to take a routing decision. Recurrence rules. So the recurrence rules is repeat. Talk about recurrence rules as repeat annually or weekly or daily. And after you choose the frequency, here X is not annually, it's yearly. You can use the frequency repeaters. So repeat weekly by day. So the weekday list by Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and so on. Repeat monthly by month day. Repeat yearly by year day. Repeat daily by hour. So there are many ways to say repeat. As I said, very similar to what you have on your agenda. If you want to schedule a conference, you're going to follow more or less the same logic until the date where to stop, if ever, and the interval every occurrence, every X occurrences. So you can define how many occurrences you have at the end. Frequency, so secondly, minutely, hourly, and yearly. These keywords are optional and should occur only once, so it cannot be weekly and minutely at the same time, right? It needs to be one of them, and then you can use the frequency modifiers. Examples. So in the examples, you can start from 2021, January 4, from 8 in the morning to 6 p.m., starting in the beginning of the year and ending on the last day of the year, on December 31. Weekly, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So this is from January 4, 8 to 6, all weekdays until the end of the year. If you repeat the same date here, right, and you're saying weekly, it will be forever, right? If you define the date of end, it will end. If you do not define, or if you use here the same date as the start, it will take forever. You can actually omit the second one if you're going to use the same. And for a holiday, let's suppose you want to use Christmas from 0 to midnight, you can use simply yearly on this date, right? So not very complicated to create, not very complicated to understand, and not very complicated to build an interface to generate these time recurrence strings. Actually, on the OpenSIPS control panel, in the dynamic routing, there's an interface to generate this recurrence strings. How to implement? Now I have the second question for my presentation is how to implement this. Okay, check time recurrence. I can actually use check time recurrence and put all the strings in the same line, separated by and or a negation, right? But this wouldn't work for too many users and many different groups. It would be a little complicated. So how do we implement? That was the question. One of the things that I've learned in the last 2 years was to repurpose some existing modules through partitioning. It's interesting that I have seen this partitioning thing since the version 2. So there's the opportunity to partition the dynamic routing module or partition the dial plan module. But what is partitioning for? Why should I partition a routing table? Why should I partition a dial plan table? Sometimes you may use dial plan or dynamic routing to partition, to create a new use for module. So the partition is the possibility to use the module in a different table for a different purpose. What are the advantages of the partitioning? You can reuse the code and you can reuse the interface. Just copy the module, create a new module in a new table, and it should work. And this would allow us to reuse some modules from OpenSIPS control panel. We should allow us to reuse some code in our script. It's an interesting idea. If you look at some modules, such as the dial plan is a module where you can have an iteration of regular expressions. So you can iterate regular expressions. The original purpose of the dial plan was to be used for search and replace. So you can search and replace a number, you can adapt a number, but you can use dial plan to route. You can route by regular expressions. Just use the address of the gateway on the attribute that you can recover from the dial plan. So whenever you need an iteration of regular expressions, you can use a dial plan partition. Prefix interaction. Prefix is something interesting. Sometimes it's not an easy algorithm to do an iteration over prefixes because you have to determine the longest match of the prefix. And if you have created this algorithm once, I have created on MySQL as a stored procedure. It takes a loop to discover the lengthest how can I say, the longest prefix match in a table, and this takes time. This takes out the efficiency of your system. So whenever you want to do an iteration of prefixes, dynamic routing can be your friend. In both modules, dynamic routing and dial plan can be used for time recurrence interaction. So I can do some interaction on time recurrence on both modules. And I'm going to show you how, and we are going to use the dial plan module to do the iteration of the time recurrence. Examples of prefix iteration. It's kind of a difficult word for me. Routing. So the basic example of prefix iteration is routing. Dynamic routing uses routing to define the best gateway. Rating. You can actually use dynamic routing to find the best rate of the call, because rating is simply find the best prefix, find a prefix and assign a value to that prefix. You can do it on using dynamic routing. There's a function called drmatch that will match a prefix, and then from the attribute you can get the rating. Blacklists. Blacklists are also based on prefix match. So you can use the module global blacklist, user blacklist, or you can use dynamic routing to match a prefix to an attribute, a whitelist or blacklist. Direct inward dial. Let's suppose you are routing DIDs, right? You can route DIDs based on number. You have a module for this called the alias DB lookup or the DB aliases. But you can also use dynamic routing to route DIDs. And you can route DIDs based on prefix, that it's much better than the alias DB lookup, because you can route by a prefix, not by the final number. So you can reuse the dial plan in many different ways for many different purposes on your script. What's the advantage? Well, dynamic routing does caching of everything. It is extremely fast running from memory. You already have an interface to provision. So there are many advantages of reusing a module. The same thing you can do in partitioning the dial plan. You have a regular expression iteration. So you can use for routing. Let's suppose I don't want to use dynamic routing for routing. I want to route based on regular expressions. Assign the name of the gateway or the carrier on the attribute. Get the carrier, do a route to carrier. You can route using the dial plan module. It's possible. You can do dial number search and replace. You can do caller ID search and replace. Just partition the dial plan module to a different table and use for a different purpose. So you can partition. That's the interesting thing. We all know that we had partitioning since several versions behind this one. But many times we don't realize how to use it. What are the possibilities of the partitioning? Options to implement this feature. So I want now to create a list of non-business hours time, including the holidays. I want to create our own table and do it manually. I could create my own table and do it manually. I could repurpose the dial plan using a different partition, and I could repurpose the dynamic routing using a different partition. Why dial plan and dynamic routing? Because dial plan and dynamic routing have support for time recurrence and time recurrence on the module itself. They have built-in support for time recurrence. We are going to use the dial plan. Why we're going to use the dial plan for this? Why I have chosen the dial plan? It could be done using the dial plan or dynamic routing. Dial plan is easier to show from the MI interface. Dynamic routing was easier to provision from CP, but even so, I decided to do in the dial plan because it was easier to show you the system working, because I have the DP translate command. I could use the DP translate to make it work and to show you, to do the demonstration of the module. But you can use both. You can use dial plan or dynamic routing for the time recurrence iteration. Presentation's choice was the dial plan. So we are going to use the dial plan. So we are going to create a dial plan partition, right? These are the rules. So for non-business hours, we are going to go for 0 to 8 in the morning is non-business hours. From 6 to midnight is non-business hours. Christmas, New Year, it's non-business hours, and Christmas are non-business hours. So the idea here is to build a list of all the non-business hours, including all the holidays, and add these expressions to the database. Any regular expression, if it matches, translates to 1. If it doesn't match, we are on business hours. Partitioning. So to create a partition, I have to prepare a new table. So I have to create a new table. So I'm going to create the table time hack, like the dial plan. And OpenSIPS has a control over the versioning. So if I'm about to create a new table, I have to insert in the table the version. So the new table will be called time rec, and the version is 5, the same version as the dial plan. So we're going to hack a little bit the dial plan to do the time recurrence. Module parameters. So for the dial plan, I'm loading the module dial plan, and I'm creating 2 partitions. So the first partition is called translations, and the table name is the original, is the dial plan. And the default partition is translation. So if I call the DP translate without the partition, it will use the dial plan table. So my original use of the dial plan is secure. It will stay working just fine. And now I have created a new partition on the time recurrence with a table name time rec. Second one for time recurrence. This is my list of non-business hours, right? Including the time zone. And testing. We can test using OpenSIPS CLI. I'm going to use DP translate, the dial plan ID. Here we will use one dial plan ID for each user, or for each group of users, or for each domain. Depends on how do you want to implement. The input will be an empty string, and here the partition. Right, so this is the way we are going to use to test the time recurrence. In the OpenSIPS code, if I want to check for non-business hours and for business hours, I could use if DP translate 1, in this case, dial plan ID. You should replace this first number, the time recurrence, with the value of the dial plan identification for each of your users or your groups or your domain. And we are going to receive the result on this AVP, the attributes for the partition time rec. So if it translates, it's a non-business hour, and then I will route to non-business, the handling of non-business hours. And for business hours, I will use route to business. Demonstration. So let's hack the dial plan to implement non-business hours and holidays. So, okay. So I have one OpenSIPS server here. So let me use MySQL. And in MySQL, let me use OpenSIPS. Now I'll do create table, time hack, like dial plan. Okay. Now I'm going to the cheat sheet. Let me let me get all these pre-configured SQL. So I will insert the version, the table name, table version. Let me use it here.
Flavio, maybe you should consider using some larger fonts just to be sure that people do see.
Yeah, sorry. Let me improve this. Sorry. I thought 16 was okay.
On a 24-inch monitor, it views perfectly. Just saying.
Okay.
Listen to Pimp Daddy over here.
Okay, I already have inserted this one. So select asterisk from version. So this is the list of all the modules. So we have the dial plan with 5 and time rec, the new one, 5.2. Right? Select asterisk from time rec. Obviously, now I don't have anyone because I just created. So let me add this one. So let me insert all the time recurrence modules. Now I have.
Yeah, people on internet say that font is fine actually, so don't bother too much.
Huh? Okay. It's okay. Okay, so now we have our new table, time recurrence, with all the expressions, right? And the time zone here. Quit. So now let me go to the OpenSIPS script. Let me add the OpenSIPS.cfg. Sorry, let me do something different here. And let me add the dial plan module here, just to make sure. Okay, so we have the DB URL, table name dial plan for translations. For time recurrence, we have time rec. Great. So now I can start checking the time recurrence table. So let me use, okay, this one. So now in New York, we have no translation, so we are in business hours, right? But if I change the date, let's suppose we change the date to, the good thing about changing the date is the server usually crashes when you start changing the dates to the past, to the future. Let me go back to 5, that it's Sunday. Oops. wow. What I did wrong here. I've tested this before.
I promise I wrote enough unit tests.
Yeah, it's here. So Sunday it's here normally.
Is your server in the right time zone?
No, it doesn't matter the time zone. It was simply
No, what I mean is just by like your date. Like, did you go far back enough? Maybe set one more day behind.
yeah, I can try. 4 work.
So 4 is still on the weekend, right? Maybe it has something to do with that 4 is a Saturday?
Yeah, 4 is a Saturday. It will be, and oh, just a moment. Rename table. Time rec. Okay, so something wrong on my inserts, right? So this is early Saturday, and for 5 is Sunday. Oh, sorry. Now I got the attribute Sunday, right? So that's right. Some problem on the time recurrence table.
I suspect the input was not correct.
Yeah, I think
You could have cut it off too. Those were big lines, so the terminal could have cut off the ends of them by accident.
yeah, something that I cut on accident. This one is the one I have tested. I just changed it a little bit. It's some error on my some error here in some place. I'll check later, and I can provide you the right ones.
I think the third parameter should be like a space with not an empty string. That's probably
Yeah,
because you're trying to match a space, right?
right. Yes. The second, the
Fourth. Anyways.
Yeah, the match expression. Yeah, maybe.
Leave him alone,
of,
Razvan.
I don't know. I'll check, but it works. So if you add the expressions correctly, it will work. I have to check later what went wrong with my inserts, but if you test the expressions, these expressions are actually correct. And then by dialplan ID, I can implement the feature on the system, and it will define the non-business hours and business hours with a simple table repurposing the partition. Right. I'm glad I have tested and I had all the backups of the tests just in case. Whenever we try on, how can I say, live, we may have some issues. That's okay. It worked. So this is a demonstration. So my 2 main takeaways from this presentation. But after the presentation, what do I think you can take home? The first way is an easy way to implement routing by time. Anyone doing cloud PBXs will have to implement this feature. So all the cloud PBXs already have this ones. The second takeaway from this presentation is I wanted you to know that you can reuse is existing modules for other purposes using partitioning. So partition is on OpenSIPS since the version 2, and maybe even later. I don't know exactly which one, but many times we don't realize what we can do with partitioning. So this was the main takeaways from this presentation. Thank you so much. I'm ready for questions.
I have. Thank you for the presentation, Flavio.
Okay.
I have a couple questions. The first one is, did you get the chance to play with time recurrence expressions?
Yes.
Or,
yeah.
Okay. So I think I mean, your approach is also very nice, that by putting one row for each rule, at least it's easier to work with, right? Rather than having to work with a big string of expressions linked by like an OR operator or something. So I definitely see that there's, yeah, one is not necessarily better than the other. And also, rather not a question, but a quick mention. You said you chose dial plan because you had the MI command to check a rule or a number, but you also have that in dynamic routing as well.
Yeah, you can try the number. I saw this later, but I prefer to use.
Sure. It was actually rather recently added, maybe in 2.3 or something like that.
Yeah,
DR number routing. Okay.
There was also another thing in the presentation that avoided me to use dynamic routing. For dynamic routing, I had to create 4 tables to partition. And it's a little bit more complicated. It was simpler to explain partitioning on the dial plan than in the dynamic routing.
I believe you can set the table name to null in the partition table. So for example, DR carrier's table name, null. So it will ignore it. Yeah, I think it works this way. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't tried it.
We'll have to check.
The last time I have partitioned the dynamic routing, I have used it actually the same name because it was already there, but I was not using the table. It's another way, but I was trying to be, how can I say, didactic.
Yeah,
I was trying to make things simpler because partitioning it's very hard in the beginning for people to understand. And for dial plan, we have a single table, so it was a little bit easier to show. But dynamic routing would have an advantage. The interface is ready for and the control panel is ready to create the time strings. So we could use dynamic routing for this. It's really a different approach, but it's funny. It seems simple after doing. But I was living with that script since 2010.
You're a necrophiliac.
Huh?
You're a necrophiliac.
Yeah.
But it's always easy after doing that.
After doing is easy.
After.
Yeah, but it's fun. It's really an interesting feature, and it can become very complex when you're building Cloud PBXs. Because you have to do it per domain or per user. Different users will have different
countries and time zones.
Countries will have different time zones. So it's something really complicated that became very simple using the dial plan module or the dynamic routing module. And this idea that I think it's interesting also, Bogdan was showing to me, I believe in the last bootcamp or 2 bootcamps ago, how to use, we are using dynamic routing for DIDs. And I thought, wow, why I'm still using alias DB lookup? So most people do not know that they can use partitions like this. Can I use a dynamic routing partition for DIDs? This was also the idea of the presentation, to show people that, hey, there's something new, let's use it. But they don't know exactly how to use it.
Also, it's like orders of magnitude difference between alias DB that does a DB dip on every lookup versus dynamic routing that is hyper optimized. I mean,
Yeah, it's hyper optimized. You can do DID by prefix, not by individual numbers. It's much, much better. But alias DB lookup is still there, and most people are still using alias DB lookup because we have never told people, hey, there's a better way to do it. We have said them, we have partitioning. Okay, figure out what to do with this.
True. Just like I said in the docs, these are RFC 2445 strings. There you go. You have everything you need.
That's it. So that was the basic idea of the presentation. I don't know if we have questions from the.
We do have time for questions. You are the last presentation of the day.
Yes, let me see.
And people are forced to stick around for the raffle, so you have a captive audience.
But I'm not seeing many questions, so it seems okay.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Everybody check all the channels. I've noticed that Bogdan has suddenly transported to the lobby of the Radisson Blue as well, and Max somehow has gotten into the room that we usually have the conference in.
I use the magic flying carpet.
Good.
Okay, well then, thank you, Flavio, for an amazing look at all of these new features. Well done, man. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I hope it helps.
I'm sure it will. So, it's that time, folks. We've reached the near end of our first day of the OpenSIPS Summit Distributed 2021, and it's raffle time. I see that Flavio is preparing himself with the 4.0 version of the raffle bot.
Yep.
So maybe Bogdan, you can maybe take it away here. Let us know what our first prize is.
Sure. We have two prizes for today.
Giovanni's
Ooh.
giving out kittens.
No, not the cats.
So cute, Giovanni.
I have an interesting story about the T-shirt. Sorry, I'm not using the T-shirt. It was kept. The customs have hold the T-shirt.
Flavio, if you check at the custom, I think somebody over there is wearing it for you.
Some Brazilian customs guy looking very
yeah.
Like,
you need to.
maybe they're using OpenSIPS
for
now.
this $2.
Maybe he is a fan of it.
Wow,
if
we
he's
are
attending
watching
this
the
summit, please return Flavio's t-shirt.
Yeah. Keep the T-shirts at the next summit on Amsterdam. I'll take all of them.
Is that a threat?
I'll try to dig out and find maybe I will have. I think I should have like a collection for going back like maybe 4 or 5 years with all these T-shirts. You know, it would be interesting, you know, to go like you know, the Americans like to say a collectible item.
Yeah, see, it's reasonable.
Okay, so going back to the fun part. If you already, you know, fire up the engine of the II, so yeah, we are at the point to do the raffle. We have two prices. As usual, one is the T-shirt. We adopted the policy 1 T-shirt per day. So yeah, so we have one for today. Keep in mind, basically it's a 2-level raffle. Actually, it's a 1 raffle and the other one it's a kind of a lottery. For its raffle, okay, to see who gets the T-shirt, and the second lottery gonna be about the sizes. You know, so we hope that we will fit the size of the T-shirt. You know, with the winner. So we have a compatibility between the T-shirts we have and the sizes of the winner. And second prize is an 1-hour session, online session, just to be clear, of design
Amsterdam?
clinics.
That actually sounds like it should be the first prize, Bogdan, the 1-hour online session. Very valuable indeed.
Well, we hope so. So whoever is trying to build something or to design something or to troubleshoot something with OpenSIPS and needs a bit of an inspiration, we have in Amsterdam a very small office in a coffee shop over there. So it's a lot of inspiration waiting. Or if you cannot travel, then you have to to take one of these design clinics with us. So that's the alternative. I'm not sure which one you prefer, but well, we can offer only the second one. So design clinic and the T-shirt that's in the basket for the today raffle.
Okay, so on the Live AI 4.0, we are set for the T-shirt.
If you can do some screen sharing, Livio, or because
sure.
Yeah, I want to see it.
We need proof. The fix is not on this year.
I think hopefully you can see. Can you see this? It's this. You should see a Slack window.
Yes, we do.
Yep.
Yeah, and basically this is the picker app, and you select kind of a custom reason, right? It's not a coffee, lunch, stand-up, code review, task, or chore, and rather it's a limited edition Summit T-shirt. And that's it. We just hit the pick, and one channel member will be selected.
Hold on. Do not press the button, Didi.
I know how to milk the moment. Trust me.
It's just before it's not melting completely. So again, rule number one for the potential winner: you need to be on the Slack on the Summit channel, and you need to let's say raise a hand to do something, so to let us know that you are actually over there, you are online, live and kicking in the channel. So just to be really
on the raffle channel.
On the raffle channel, like all the programmers are, we need to set up a timeout, so to agree on a timeout for the winner to claim the prize.
So who's managing the timeout, Bogdan?
I am.
This is a very Alex.
Okay, problem solved. Okay, so what's the timeout? The value.
Arbitrary. Don't you worry about it.
Okay.
Random.
If you're not here, you might miss it. Sorry.
It's a discretionary timeout created by Alex.
Okay, this raffle becomes more and more complicated. Okay, so Alex is playing the timer role over here. So until Alex decides, you need to claim the prize. Otherwise, we go on the next round with the picker. So these are the rules. Okay.
Here we go.
So.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Let's go.
Boom.
Schön. Mr. Schön.
Mr. Schön, are you here?
Hussein is here for sure.
Let's be clear about the rules. It's not the first person that raises their hand after the picker. Is he here? Man.
Countdown. 10, 9, 8, whatever.
Max, I thought Alex was in charge of the timing there.
Oh yeah.
All right, I'm telling you, your pee break hurt you. Next person, please.
Yeah, it looks like he's not online.
Oh, okay.
Goodbye, Felicia.
Okay, let's do it. Taha Zafar. Congratulations. But he looks offline, right? Look, snoozed.
No, yeah.
He's snoozing.
Wow.
Maybe
This is both a violent and unpredictable part of the production here, isn't it?
It almost feels like nobody wants this prize.
Yeah.
So Alex, maybe your dream will come true.
Also, the fact that
another one.
Get me in the channel, you bastard.
The fact that they snooze their notifications, right?
Yeah, maybe we should drop the timeout, like the 5 seconds or something.
Yeah, this is
All right.
Otherwise, it will
Yep.
take until
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Another lesson of you snooze, you lose.
Yeah. I'll just. Oh, Anton has to be online. Congratulations. No. No.
Well. Wow.
All right, we're gonna
Oh.
start taking like payments for like who wants this.
Well, if it's based on raised hands and faces, it would have to be.
Oh no,
Husland.
he's typing.
He's-
No.
No, it's another
another
one.
one. No.
Yeah, it's a partial
Sorry,
match.
man.
Okay, let's
Maybe
be
he should
fair.
just have half the t-shirt.
Or I don't know.
No, it's too much.
It's
too
worth.
much.
It's yeah,
gone,
but it's
yeah,
worth
yeah.
at least tagging them. Oh, I guess the app already tagged them, so
Yep.
they should have received the notification. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
you
Next.
snooze, you lose. 733.
Okay. Santos offline.
Oh boy. It's another bug in Livio.
At least-
I mean, would it help
at
if I
least-
just agreed to take the t-shirt?
this.
Oh. Maybe we can configure it. Only pick online members.
That sounds like a very good modification.
Yeah, but
Version 4, falling flat on its face.
yeah. I don't think you can do it though. I'll have to read the documentation.
Artificial, very intelligent.
That's a bit
Okay.
extreme, Liv, reading the documentation.
D. Kumar. No, man.
No chance.
Next.
Next. Okay. Oscar Bello.
Nope.
Wow.
I think if you don't get it within 3 or 4, I think it should go to Mr. Huslin. Or however you pronounce it.
I agree.
Okay, one more.
Hopefully one more.
Hussein, show you good.
D. Guerrero.
Are you sure it's not programmed to pick only people that are offline?
There are 200 people. Let's see if we take a look.
Yeah,
Lots of offline
110,
people.
yeah.
Still waiting.
I think you just make those as fast as you can.
Yeah.
Whoever raise his hands.
Okay. Sesterlici. Okay. Next.
Go ahead. Next.
Next.
It's even more interesting.
I feel like we're playing spin the bottle.
Sebastian Couture.
No chance.
No. Next.
Oh my goodness.
Hussein was very present.
Shern. 2 times.
Okay.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Wouldn't it be an
Hussein
irony?
Bakci.
Wouldn't it be ironic if you did another pick with you and it turned out to be Mr. Hussein, but it left?
Yeah.
That's not right.
Juan Mora.
Nope.
Oh
No.
man.
This is a premiere, by the way.
A premiere of
We've never
code
done
that
this.
doesn't work.
Gabe Shepard. Finally. They are.
Yes! You better say something, Gabe. Where are you?
Yeah, you still got to actually.
Gabe,
show up, haven't we?
Gabe,
Gabe.
Don't do this to us.
Gabe, Gabe.
Shoot another one.
For the love of God, Gabe.
It's
Come on.
actually- oh, yeah, okay. Oh, man. We go next, right?
Yeah. Go ahead.
It's fair. Yeah. Wow.
It's fair.
You still got some time.
Hussein,
Javier
Hussein.
Javier,
Nope.
maybe.
Next.
Hussein. Okay. Daniel Nagate.
Oh yeah, he's around.
He's meant to be
Okay.
online, though.
Daniel, say something for the love
Daniel.
of God. Daniel.
No.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Fighting.
Whew. That was a hard one.
Right now, the Oompa Loompas are under the hood, reconfiguring the code for the picker.
Okay.
Okay, so Daniel, we will get in touch with you on Slack just to coordinate with the T-shirt. Okay. So just to know.
Okay, so here comes the really big prize for the day. A counseling session with the core team in their underwear.
Counseling session. Now that sounds more
I
akin
did
to what
say
it
they were
really
in
is,
their
Alex.
underwear. Of course, they would require a counseling session.
Okay. Drum roll. That's the Lindsay that they won before. So lucky.
Not
But
here.
but not here. They would have won both. Wow.
It's very hard to get a T-shirt. You see how hard it is to get 1 hour with the OpenSIPS team.
Oh, what is this?
What?
Again? Like,
Hey, it got broken.
Yeah,
Broken.
I think there might be a memory leak or something going on here.
Run of randomness.
yeah. Nassar Mohammed 293.
Nope.
No. Maybe definitely pick the online people for tomorrow. I'll make a minor release. Adam Jeffrey.
Who apparently is
Yeah.
online.
Yeah.
Adam, are you here?
Ooh.
Adam, say something.
I mean, he's active on the list. Might as well say something on the Slack.
Hello, Adam.
No, yeah. I guess the timeout.
Hello. His coworkers are going, what the hell?
Like we had that project, we had to solve it. Come on.
Yeah. Josh Keife.
Oh,
Also
Josh.
active.
Oh,
Josh,
Yeah.
you're here. I know you're here.
Yeah.
say something.
It's only noon where you're at.
If you see something, say something.
No way. Wow.
Guys, I think we need to pick new raffle items. Nobody wants them.
Yeah.
Hello.
John Kiniston.
I think John's online. Well
Yeah.
done, John.
Deserved. Congrats.
Congratulations, John.
Meanwhile, I think Mr. Hussein's becoming a very famous community member here.
Somebody give that guy a shirt for the love of God.
Yeah, send him a
Exactly,
shot.
exactly. You're bang on.
All right.
Well then,
Back to development.
I think
So-
that's going to conclude our raffle. We
Yep.
have 2 happy winners and several unhappy absent people.
It could have been them.
But congratulations to the winners. Don't forget, this is going to be happening every day. Hopefully
And
a little bit.
as a
shorter
note,
time.
on Friday we also have the big prize.
The backpack
Yep.
full of tampons.
And it's no ordinary backpack, Bogdan, is it? Isn't it a Samsonite?
Yes, it is, and it's also inscription with an OpenSIPS logo.
Mm,
What? Do you have a
excellent.
picture?
It's on the website,
Well.
and actually it's a real. It's not a mock-up or anything. So let me dig in for the picture. So if we go prizes.
I think while you're looking for that, Liv, you should be congratulated for all of that effort that just went in there.
What are you, nuts?
I'm not talking about the results. I'm talking about the effort there.
Okay, sure, the effort.
That was fun.
So I'm trying to find what's the back. No, I think I lost the picture. No one.
While he's looking, Giovanni, I do have to compliment you again on your filter. Like, seriously, man, you look like a model. Like you should be walking the runway.
I'm not sure whether I would want to go to that fashion show, though, Alex.
It all depends on what they're wearing or what they aren't wearing. So, yeah, I would require a little more information before booking a ticket. He is dancing, though.
Yeah. We should point out that Giovanni and his cat have become famous on Facebook for his cat using. Well, when you say cat, it's a little kitten, isn't it, Giovanni?
Yeah, it's a kitten. Yeah, it's like we have it since 2 weeks, and we're totally into it.
It's a beautiful little thing, isn't it? Lovely.
Yeah. We're totally happy.
All right, Bogdan, you've been given enough time. Sorry.
No, just found the picture. Hold on. Hold on.
He can surf the web, people.
Yeah.
Max, I'm going to take a freaking seasickness pill. You keep zooming in and out.
If he zooms out any further, he'll have to become known as Min rather than Max. Sobo Min.
So that's you got it on the Summit raffle. Okay, let me put it also on the Summit.
Thank you.
Here it is.
There we
That's
go.
the big...
Ooh.
Yep. So that's for Friday. So be sure you are on Slack then.
It's a fine-looking piece of bag, that, on the picture on Slack. Excellent.
Wow.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Don't send to Brazil. The customs do not need another bag.
Need to have a full outfit, t-shirt, bag, everything.
Livia, did you get that? Make sure that it doesn't select people from Brazil.
Yeah. Well, because the guy from Brazil will win, but the one who keep the bag will be the customs.
I think you should build in a filter tomorrow, Livia, to search for Mr. Hussein.
Yeah.
So that's it, folks. That's the end of our day one at the 2021 OpenSIPS Summit Distributed. Thank you all for your participation. Thank you to the speakers. And of course, thank you to our sponsors. It was an amazing first day. We do have some things to work on for tomorrow for you, and mainly that picker. But don't you worry, Livia is hard at work at that. We look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And bring your questions. Any questions that are post-conference today, make sure that you use the Slack channel. The moderators, the speakers, they're all still in there. So if you have any last-minute questions, feel free to go ahead and use it. And until then, we'll see you here tomorrow. Okay. Well done, everybody. Well done.
Thank you. It was a great session.
No, thank you.
Till tomorrow, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I didn't realize you were in there twice then.